Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients. Today with me is Leslie from Vitaminis. We haven't spoken in a while. She's got lots of news to report. If you're not familiar or don't remember her from previous, I want to just give you a little snapshot. She makes these little individual Vitamini shots. They are citrus. They're for your immune system. They're for health. They're for energy. They're for all sorts of things. So you're not going to want to miss this episode. It really talks about her journey, how she's moving forward, and all the successes she's had, and maybe even shares a couple nuggets about challenges she's had on her journey. So welcome, Leslie. When I saw I think I saw a post you did or some news on LinkedIn, and I was like, oh my gosh, we need to bring her back. Talk to Leslie, see what's next and what's new, and share your exciting news and how you got there and what you're doing, and because you've grown a lot. You've grown a lot. And I think that, while we've expanded too, we still want to, check back in with all of our founders and see where they are today.
Our customer, we did a deep dive on our best customers, and there's two of them, but one of them is a woman 50 plus. So it's interesting. It's an area that I've been getting more into.
And so what have you found? Talk to me about a little bit about that. I'm curious.
Yeah, so we had what we found is our best customers fall into kind of two categories. The one that I think is the bigger one that I was more aware of is kind of like me. And we call her the Millennial Mom Nutrition CEO. So she's kind of like running her family's nutrition like a business and checking boxes, but she's very busy and stretched thin. And so she really prioritizes that it's easy and tastes good. But there is this emotional benefit of like, I'm making good choices and I'm kind of like doing my job for my family and keeping their health and wellness. And then she'll buy Vitaminis and then the whole family will drink it. So some of my best customers have told me, I drink it, my husband, my kids, and even our nanny. It's like everybody is just there. And then the second customer profile that emerged is a woman in her like 50s or 60s who is looking for more gentle and natural nutritional solutions. So she doesn't love the idea of like really strong pills or like anything too intense. She wants kind of like natural and gentle, and it's all preventative focused. So the thought is, I want to be like active, stay healthy. And then there's all sorts of things like staying involved with my grandkids or like, being able to like work the jobs that I love or whatever. And Vitaminis is part of a broader solution of like natural, gentle nutrition to kind of just keep her vibrant and healthy.
I love that. That's great. I think we're all evolving organically. And I think there's so many new conversations and awareness out there that it invigorates us. It invigorates us as founders. It invigorates us as brands. It invigorates how we grow.
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting. So I was, when I was reading up on you guys, when I first said to my podcast producer, I'm like, we got to reach out to her because, I feel like since the last time we spoke, she's grown light years. She's grown light years. I feel like there was new product launches, maybe a bit of a rebranding.
Yes.
Even some exclusives in some of the shops. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about, let's start with the rebranding.
Yes, it did. Because originally, way back 4 years ago when I started the business, we started with a kid focus. And I think our packaging and branding had some elements of that was still kind of like maybe a little mixed messaging. So we did want to kind of rebrand now that we are focused on these new target customers. And also the other big change that informed the rebranding is that we got more into retail. And our original branding didn't communicate as much on the package. It was more, with the digital content and the website. But when you're at retail, you have to communicate within, I think it's like 2 or 3 seconds. And we have this tiny little bottle. So it has to kind of say what you want to say right there. Right. So we updated it. So now it's sort of hitting you with like, here's all the reasons to buy it. Probiotics, fiber, potassium. And then for like the immune support, vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, like boom, boom, boom. That was inspired by RX Bar. If you remember, RX Bar has exactly what's in it. And then the top is meant to kind of inspire like just it's juice. It tastes good. It's delicious. So we put all this fruit here. So it's not meant to be like too serious or medicinal feeling. It's So the bottom is kind of like the business part of it, and the top is like, and it's delicious.
Is the top also connected to the ingredients that are in there?
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So orange pineapple juice for the immune support. This one is a berry banana. And yeah, so we wanted to communicate the flavor without taking up too much space, and like also make it come across as like very tasty, because it is. And I find a lot of people expect it to taste bad. So we're trying to use that imagery to show that it tastes good. And the other major change is that we changed our tagline to drink your vitamins. So we used to say mini mighty tasty, which I still think applies, but drink your vitamins is so much more prescriptive and like obvious to someone, like, oh, it's a drinkable vitamin.
Well, I also think, to your point about your demographic, where initially you were focused on children, Mini Mighty Tasty sounds like it's geared towards children. It's cute, it's fun. But the other one sounds like it's a little bit more elevated, sophisticated, and talks to a little bit more of a sophisticated audience, somebody that's looking at it for themselves, a little bit educated within this realm.
Totally right. And then you mentioned the exclusive. So this summer we got into Sprouts nationwide.
Congratulations.
This is breaking news. I've been talking to Sprouts for 2.5 years. I actually went back in my emails, like, when did I first talk to them? 2.5 years. And it's funny because, things happen when they're meant to happen, but they had some feedback on the packaging back in the day. They didn't feel like the kid positioning really fit with their shopper and all of that. But then full circle, it suddenly made sense. And Daily Greens was our Sprouts exclusive.
Oh.
So it has the vitamins from leafy green vegetables in a green apple pear juice. So vitamins A, E, D, and folate. And there's also, like, you can see it's a delicious green juice with like broccoli powder, kale powder, spirulina, but it tastes like apple and pear juice. This product came from our best customers. So I asked our best customers, what would you like to see us do? And they said Daily Greens. So I developed it, and then I was just like holding on to it and waiting. And I thought it would be amazing to launch this as an exclusive with the right retail partner. And I was right about, like, I've been trying for a while to find someone. And just about to that point where I said, I'm just going to launch it because people need this product. And like right then is when Sprouts happened. So again, like,
wow.
I think these things happen.
That's true, it is.
So this was a Sprouts exclusive for 90 days, but it's now available to everybody. So that's exciting.
So there's so much news that you have there, and that's so exciting. You've grown so much. And I'm curious because I'm looking at the packaging and I'm looking at the size, and I'm looking at what you put it in. Talk to me a little bit about the packaging. Is it plastic? Because it was plastic, I remember before. Is it still plastic? Talk to me about that plastic and what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, it's still plastic. And that it bothers me as everyone, like, single-use plastics are not great. For us, we had to choose something that was e-commerce friendly. And also our product is shelf stable, which is a little bit different than a lot of other juice shots out there that are fresh pressed and have to be refrigerated. So there's a lot of benefits to being shelf stable for consumers. You can get it delivered, take it in the lunchbox, whatever. Retailers love that. But it requires a certain process if you don't want to put preservatives. So we use a hot fill process. You basically heat the juice and then seal it while it's still hot. So we needed a package that could do that. And that's kind of where we had to end up. But I do constantly explore and think about better options. And my philosophy is, if Vitaminis can get big enough, we can develop better packaging. I mean, I don't know if you've seen like the plastic silverware now that's made from corn, like corn products, eco products. Why don't we have bottles for that? Like, why aren't we developing better solutions, biodegradable solutions, et cetera, that can survive this? So I think it will come, but it's tough when you're a tiny brand because you're kind of subject to what's available, and that's one of my inspirations, to be honest, about getting big with Vitaminis, is to be able to impact the whole system with nutrition and also other elements of the business, packaging, sustainability, because those big companies are the ones that can actually really move the needle, but you got to get there first.
No, you got to get there. I mean, I also think because you're so excited about that and it's so meaningful to you, that I wonder what the road would look like, the trajectory, if you were to have conversations with other people to find out what waste they had and unused resources, to leverage that, to be able to collaborate and innovate together. so that you don't, as a small business, have to rely on just yourself, but other small businesses that find that their waste, etc., can be turned into different things. And together you create this new way of packaging.
I love that idea. That's a great idea. I have a couple of packaging partners that I work with who service tons of brands, big and small. That might be something I could ask them about. Just like if there's any, I'm sure they're all working on it. It's a problem I think everybody sees. It's a hard one to solve, but I think like those little steps can make a difference. And a couple things we're thinking about in the near term also is for consumers that really don't like that. We are looking to launch stick packs or dissolvable tablets that are a little bit more shippable. You can use your reusable water bottle at home to kind of recreate a Vitaminis for yourself. So I think that could be a nice interim solution for people that would prefer not to use the shot format. But for those who really appreciate the shot format and the convenience of it, yeah, I'd love to find a non-single-use plastic solution.
And I think it might mean exploring outside of food, because there's other people. It's kind of the way Rothy's use different items to make their shoes, right?
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
the same way. So, how can we connect with each other, one another, to brainstorm and innovate in that space? Because, if we're in the CPG space, if we're in the food space, our resources are food. Our resources are other CPG founders. But if we can connect with people in fashion or beauty and see what they're doing, see what they're leaving behind, see what's unused, maybe there's some resources. I mean, beauty would be another one that I think might have some similar issues as well. There's a whole issue around size, and depending on the size, it can or can't be recycled in different places. And I think there's also the concept of people don't even know what's recyclable if they see it.
Yes, good point.
There's an education around that. So, I think that that's all sort of a conversation, as we all continue to explore what's happening next in these fields, how do we come together?
I love that. And you're right. Like sometimes when you look to other categories or industries, you get some inspiration that you maybe wouldn't have known about otherwise.
Exactly.
Love it.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you and what you have going on. So I know you had this new flavor profile that you launched at Sprouts, and now it's other places. Are there other flavor profiles we're going to expect to see down the road?
I have a list of like a wish list, and most of these ideas come in the form of like functional areas as opposed to like flavors. And then the way I develop the product is once there's like a functional area, I try to back into ingredients that deliver those benefits and build a flavor around that. So for example, like an immune support, vitamin C, we ended up doing a citrus base. Or with gut health, fiber and probiotics, but the fiber especially with berries and bananas, which are like very fiber dense. So some of the functionality I hear about that's in the pipeline, protein comes up a lot. And I think some of that's fueled by Ozempic and these GLP-1 trends, but also some, older populations too, like that other customer profile that I mentioned, really just understanding the value of protein for longevity and metabolism and things like that. So protein shot is one. I hear a lot about kind of mental nootropic type of benefits like stress relief, sleep, relaxation. So those are a couple that are on the list. And then longer term, I'm also thinking about launching another product platform. We talked about like the stick packs and dissolvable tablets, but Vitaminis, like mini bites and sips, like everything mini and nutritious, but like little bars, like little fruit bars that have extra vitamins, extra fiber, nutrients in them. So that's kind of my thought process long term. I think we could be a whole portfolio of mini bites and sips.
I love that. So as you grow to expand that, what challenges are you finding that, now that you've changed, you've organized who your demographic is, and you've rebranded, and you're in Sprouts, and you're coming up with all these new profiles and new SKUs? What are some of the challenges you think lay ahead that you're trying to prepare for?
Yeah, so there's a few challenges. I mean, this area, beverages and supplements. I mean, we're technically a beverage, but we're kind of like drawing from both sides.
Hybrid, maybe. Hybrid.
Yeah, functional food and beverage sits right in between supplements and food. It's kind of like this middle ground. And I think that's growing. Like people are kind of looking for food to deliver more of a benefit, and they're not loving like pure supplements. They want to be more natural. So it's growing and growing, but it's very competitive. And so I think that is the challenge. Like I do definitely believe in our differentiated, clean label, no strong flavors, natural food and beverages. Like it's different and it's valuable. And our best customers know that too, but getting that message out is really tough. So, it's a combination of trying to reach as many people as possible, which is very, very expensive, or, with the right message, or finding like who are those people and where do you find them to communicate more efficiently with them of exactly like what you are and why you're better. So that's been an evolution. Like what we've pivoted more towards is finding those people in retail. So we redesigned our package to kind of communicate those benefits right on the package. And we're thinking about retail as a place for discovery. So someone can find like us at retail in a single bottle, or maybe at one of our tasting events, they try it. And that's a lot easier way for someone to try it for the first time than ordering a 12-pack on the website. Like that's a much more expensive commitment. So they find us at retail, they taste it, they love it because it tastes great. And then we have these QR codes right on the bottle. They can join our email list, and then we can kind of bring them to our website, tell them more about subscriptions and different flavors and things like that. So that's kind of our approach right now, but it's hard. It's really expensive to communicate in this environment. Everyone's trying to get everyone's attention. All the brands are trying to get everyone's attention all the time, whether it's on social media, in retail, online. So that's a challenge, kind of doing that in an efficient way, because I'm a small business, I'm not like Coca-Cola.
And so I want to talk about, it's expensive. It's expensive for a small business. Many people choose to be self-funded and do the best that they can to bootstrap because they feel like they give away a lot when they raise money, and that can be a challenge. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts and your journey on that.
Yes, that is a challenge. And I did bootstrap for quite a while in the beginning. So in the very beginning, we started online only. It was much smaller scale and more incremental. And that worked out well because the total dollar amounts were lower. And also I had the freedom to kind of move at my own pace. I had my fourth child at that time. I actually went back to work full time after I started Vitaminis for a period. So bootstrapping really gives you a lot of flexibility for how fast to move and what you want to do. But after about 2 years, it became clear to me that like wasn't going to scale enough. It's like after 2 years, I had a decent little group of customers, but it wasn't like reaching enough people or growing to a meaningful scale. It was really impacting everyone. So that's when I decided to go into retail to start, and that really drove me to need to bring in some more capital. Retail is very expensive. There's the marketing part of it, catching attention, whether it's demo, tastings, couponing, promotional activity. And then there's
space.
Slotting fees. It's expensive. And then on top of that, it's just big. So when we launched in Sprouts, our business grew 6 times just with that one retailer. So whatever I was doing with my little online piece and my smaller mom and pop retailers, suddenly 6 times the product. So that money to like produce all that product and get it out the door, you don't get that back for quite a while. So you make the product and you have to pay kind of upfront, part of it upfront when you order all the ingredients and stuff. That takes a couple months, and then you ship it to the distributor, and that takes a while. And then it goes to the retailer, and then they pay you 30 days after that. So there's like quite a bit of capital that you have to kind of front. And that's what really drove me to raise some money from friends and family. And I also took part in the Generator Accelerator program, which comes with an investment as well. So that, I think, was a good shift. But going forward, I'm looking for ways to fund some of that inventory with debt instruments or other vehicles that don't necessarily require giving away a lot of equity, because I think, if you want to give away equity, it should be to grow the brand and the scope as opposed to like just producing inventory.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious because that was a choice, and it seemed like it was very thoughtful, and it was the right move for you. And I'm wondering if you might share with those listening today, the people that are tuned in and want to grow their business. If you were to do it again, would you do it the same way? And what are some of the things that they should consider being mindful of and taking into account as they make their own decisions to whether or not to take capital or not?
It's a great question because it does change your timelines, your stakeholders. Like it's a different game. So I kind of alluded to this, but in the beginning, I really valued being able to control my own pace, like slow down if I wanted to, whatever. Some of that was personal reasons. I went back to work, so I was doing it on the side. And bootstrapping allowed me to have that flexibility and control. And even walking away from the business at some point, anytime I could have said like, okay, I'm just not going to do this anymore. And I'd only have to answer to myself and my husband. But, once you raise money, you do have like a accountability to outside folks, and whatever the pitch is of what you are going for, people invest because they want upside. It's not a charity case. So, you pitch like, we're going to grow, we're going to go after this or that on this timeline. Well, now you have to deliver on that. And so communicating where you stand on a regular basis and making sure you're meeting those timelines. It just changes, suddenly it's not just what you want, you have made a commitment to these stakeholders. So that is, somewhat of more of an obligation, but the plus side is being able to go after bigger opportunities. The Sprouts account, 450 retail locations nationwide. I would have never been able to do that with the way I was running the business before, but with my investors, I could. So there's a lot of upside too to make your dream bigger and more impactful by bringing in other stakeholders, but it does bring a level of pressure and, you lose some of that autonomy that you had previously.
Of course, yeah. And I don't know, remember what I was listening to the other day, but it was somebody who was talking about growing too quickly, which you did not do, but that obviously is a challenge, and people try to get into these stores right out of the gate, and then they realize they can't afford to be in them.
Yes, it is a challenge, and I still face it, because what I realized, actually learned a lesson just in the last couple months. I launched with Sprouts, and I've turned my attention to Sprouts and making sure we've got our velocities there and we're supporting them, etc. And I did turn some attention away from some of the smaller retailers that we were in, and our velocities there dropped. And so there's a very real trade-off with where you put your time and energy in these early days. At some point, perhaps your brand reaches a tipping point where you have that kind of organic awareness and people are talking or whatever. But until then, you have to be so kind of knowledgeable about where you're putting aware of where you're putting your attention and your resources. And everything is a trade-off, and that was a decision I made to move resources to Sprouts, and I'm glad that I did because it's a priority, but there were some trade-offs that happened because of that. And I think that just keeps going, right? Because I'm already having conversations with other larger retailers now as that next step. And the question becomes like, can I continue to support Sprouts enough and still go after these new opportunities? And if yes, what kind of additional support do I need? What kind of money would I need to make that work? So that's important because, going one step further, a lot of these big retailers, if you're not successful, you are on the hook to get that product back out of there. So either you're buying it back from them, or you're funding markdowns, 50% off, because they want to move it through. It's not selling on its own, and you have to pay for that. So depending on how big the retailer is, that could be an obligation that could sink your business. And I've actually heard some horror stories of people that go into these massive retail accounts, raise a bunch of money, fund a rollout, but don't have the resources to kind of get the sales going. And then they end up having to buy it all out again and shut down because they just can't recover from it. So that weighs on my mind a lot. And I have a feeling that that trade-off continues, whether it's your first retailer, your second, your fifth, you're always kind of balancing that.
Of course, it sounds like it's a big decision when you're choosing a retailer. It's exciting to be invited. It's exciting to get that deal. It's exciting to be able to say, I'm going to be in Whole Foods, but it can also be scary too.
Totally.
You're really calculated about how you do that so that you don't go belly up.
Yes. And it's such a balance because I do feel like in entrepreneurial journey, fear is this constant roadblock Maybe it's just me, but everything's a risk, like launching the business in the first place, putting your product out there, people going to like it or not, going in that first retail. So there's always this risk there. And it's this balance between, calculated risk versus just like, and you never know everything. You're never going to have all the answers. So what's the way that you can take these risks while still managing an out or like a backup plan? And, that's the name of the game.
Wow, so much. You've done so much since the last time we spoke. And when we spoke last time, I mean, it was super exciting because it was more towards the beginning and you're getting out there. And I'm so excited for you for all the progress that you made and the success that you've had.
Thank you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
yeah,
It's been fun to talk to you over the journey, just because I'm reminded how much I've done.
Yes, I like that, right? I like that for myself. I like that for you. We talked about the different communities that are part of your audience, right? You have the moms, the millennial moms that are busy, etc., and you have the menopausal women or people in their 50s and 60s, right? And I'm curious because this is such a great product. What accessibility do lower income families have to this? Whether to learn about it, to have access to it, to be able to get it?
That's a really good question. I don't know a lot about that, so I don't know that I have all the answers to it. But one thing I will say is that as labeled as a beverage instead of a supplement, I think that opens up accessibility through channels where folks have, credits towards food and beverages to purchase. And my vision with Vitaminis was to provide more bang for the buck, if you will, of like, if you're going to drink something, at least have it count with extra nutrients, rich in vitamins, fiber, etc. So I think to that extent, it's accessible as a food, but with more value than, maybe a typical food that doesn't have all that extra fortification.
Right.
Whereas I think supplements might be excluded from a lot of those programs.
Right. So like SNAP or whatever it is, theoretically they would accept this because it's under that category.
I think so. But again, I'm not super informed about that. I should look into that. It is expensive though. That is the one thing that, um, it is expensive. We're kind of starting out here. I have a roadmap over time to bring our prices down as we scale, because as you get bigger, you get better pricing on your bottles and your ingredients and your manufacturing. So I think longer term, Vitaminis could definitely be a mass product at a lower price point in thousands of retailers everywhere. But right now it is more of a higher end natural grocery product at a higher price point. So I think, developing the brand and growing it in these early stages with that kind of early adopter audience will then be the foundation to make it more widely available down the road.
I think I mean, it's great to be able to offer that at some point. And I think the challenge is, as a small company, people want to do all the right things, but you have to make choices. And the choices, you can't always have all the perfect choices now, but it's your intention so that you do this first and then you continue to grow. And I think it's important to share that with the community so people can get behind you, understanding your values, even if at this moment they may have an issue with a plastic bottle, but they understand that there's more vitamins in what they're getting and there's more value in it, and that it's important to you and you're working on it so that as you grow, you can incorporate that. Because the thing is, we're always so hard on ourselves and on others, and we're like, well, I don't want to buy that. That's in plastic, right? And is that a good company? And what is their ethos? And I think it's important to ask the questions and be curious and better understand, why are you making these choices today? And what's your overarching mission? So that at the, in your trajectory includes making these additional changes to be better for the planet, to be better for the environment, to be more accessible, to make it available.
Yes, it's so true. Yeah, because it's a journey, and like, when you're first starting out, you can't change the world because you're just starting out. But like, I heard another entrepreneur mention that profit is like the fuel to make changes in the world. And that really, really resonated with me, because I think sometimes, to your point, like people have there's like a negative connotation to making money or being a big business or whatever. And like, it's true that sometimes businesses abuse that and like do things that are not good, but other times that is the fuel that allows you, and the access, like being a big company allows you to change the whole system.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And the other thing that we talk a lot about within Vitaminis is there are environmental benefits of being a fortified food, a plant-based food. Like the more we can get out of our food and the more nutritious and more plant-based our diets, that eases off the environment as well. So there's a lot more nuance to it, but I really appreciate you asking that because that means a lot to me longer term.
Good. I'm so glad. And I think it will be meaningful to listeners and customers and people viewing this it gives them a greater insight into you. So Leslie, thank you so much for tuning in today with me and joining me on the podcast. It was great to get to reconnect, reintroduce you to the community, and give everybody a little peek into how things have been progressing with you.
Thank you so much. It was fun.
It was. And I want to thank our guests for tuning in, because really our guests are the reason we come back each week, to give them more information, new information. And we want to hear from you. So, follow us on Instagram, chat with us, tell us what you liked, what questions you have. We want to engage and we want to hear from you. It's been so fun connecting with some of those members that get our newsletters and listen to our podcasts. So we want to continue that conversation. So if you're not following us, make sure to follow us at essential.ingredients or at justine.reichman. You can also find the podcast, Essential Ingredients with Justine, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. So, Leslie, if folks want to get Vitaminis, what's the best way? We do know they're in Sprouts. For those that don't have access to Sprouts, where else can they get it?
Yes, so Sprouts for sure. Come to our website, vitaminisbrand.com. If you drop your email, you get a 20% off right away, so you can try our products at a discount. And then if you like to, we're also on Walmart Marketplace and Amazon. I know a lot of folks like to shop those places for their other goods. So if that's what you like, we're there too. So yeah, we're trying to be everywhere slowly.
Congratulations. Keep me posted on how things progress.
Will do. Thank you.